Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2016 Ohio Bible Quizzing Workshop. We're so excited to have you, and thank you for all of our viewers at home. We have a lot to cover this year in our Ohio Bible Quizzing Workshop, and so we're going to cover content related to 2017, Rooted, our exciting study of the book of Acts. We're also going to cover new rules that have come about in Bible quizzing, how to start a Bible quizzer, how to fit Bible quizzing into your busy schedule. We're going to cover a new exciting resource from the General Youth Division, and we're also going to take some tips related to coaching in a tournament. So what you do when you're actually at the board. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jay Lionel. I'm the Ohio Senior Bible Quizzing Coordinator. This is my 6th year coming up here in Ohio, and we're excited about 2017, our study Rooted. So our very first slide here is going to cover the basics of coaching. Now, I'm going to be talking about a lot of resources, a lot of papers and documents. You can get all of these documents on the Senior Bible Quizzing website after the event, or you can email me. I have my email right there on the screen. It's JAY, the number 2, then LYTLE@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to email you all of the documents that we're referring to here today. Now, when we talk about Bible quizzing, we have to define our terms. And so the next slide is going to show you the 4 different divisions in Bible quizzing. There are 2 basic divisions. There's senior and junior Bible quizzing. Senior are those quizzers who are 12 to 18, and junior is 11 and under. But within each of those 2 quizzing departments, senior quizzing and junior quizzing, there's 2 more separate divisions. So in senior Bible quizzing, at the very top of your screen, you can see that experienced Bible quizzing is any quizzer 12 to 18. Now usually you're going to see a lot of 15 to 18-year-olds there because there's an intermediate division. But the intermediate division is quizzers 12 to 14 or a rookie Bible quizzer, so the very first year in senior quizzing. And so for all intents and purposes, experienced is 15 to 18, and intermediate is 12 to 14, as well as rookies of all ages. Now, you have junior Bible quizzing as well, which is ages 9 through 11, and then beginner is 8 and under. Now, when we're talking about these different age brackets, we're referring to that quizzer's age on January 1st of that particular quiz year. And so I get questions all year long about, hey, is my quizzer in this division or this division? And so you can just figure out what's their birthday, okay? How old are they going to be on January 1st of 2017? Whatever their age is at that moment in time, that's what division they get to quiz in that particular year. Now, you can always move up in an age bracket within seniors or within juniors. In other words, if you have a 5-year-old who would have been a beginner quizzer, they can quiz in juniors if they want. Not sure why you'd want them to, because you've got a 5-year-old quizzing against an 11-year-old, but maybe you don't have enough beginner quizzer to pair them with, and so you can always move up in age, but you can't cross from junior to senior in that regard. In other words, you can't have an 11-year-old quizzing in senior Bible quizzing in the intermediate division. It doesn't work that way. So you can go intermediate to experienced, beginner to junior, but you can't go junior to intermediate on that given year, all right? And so the quizzer's age is a big deal. Now, as far as Ohio goes, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Ohio. If you're back home and you don't live in Ohio, just contact your local youth president, and they'll let you know who your Bible quiz coordinator is. My wife Brittany and I, we take care of senior quizzing in Ohio, and Mark Schroeder and his family take care of junior Bible quizzing. And in your packets that we have for you, you can get their contact information. But Bible quizzing in general is a season that lasts from January through June. We have 1 tournament a month, usually on a Saturday, and the tournaments are separate from junior and senior. All right, so in Ohio's case, seniors tournaments are usually the week before juniors are. Now, these tournaments in Ohio start at 10 a.m. and it typically lasts till about 4 or 5 p.m. and we usually do a double elimination tournament. Double elimination means you have to lose twice before you're finished. All right, and so there's a top end of the bracket, and if you lose, you go down to the bottom end of the bracket. That way you at least get to quiz twice every tournament, but if you win, you keep moving forward. State Finals is a 2-day tournament, and that takes place either from May 15th to June 30th. That was one of the changes in the new rule manual in senior quizzing. state finals used to be June through the middle of July, and now they moved it up a little bit. So now it's May 15th to June 30th is when every district has to complete their district finals. Part of the reason they did that was because we're moving up nationals a little bit. And so in Ohio, I'll give a little bit of a teaser there. We are having a June state final. We don't know the exact date yet because they haven't been approved. That's a 2-day tournament. That's an exciting time where we have award ceremonies. Every quizzer gets a trophy on state finals. Now, a little further down on your page, and for those back home, I'm looking at a starting from scratch document, and we'll have this on the website, and you can also email me. My email's on the screen there. It's j2lytle@gmail.com. You'll be able to download this. But I have all the extravaganza information. Now, junior and senior extravaganzas are also separate events, and you'll see on your extravaganza form that these are regional tournaments that take place all across North America, and it happens from March to April. So this is a great midpoint in your season. If you've never been to an extravaganza, it's a great way to break up the season in half. You know, the sun's getting a little brighter in the springtime. Your kids want to go outside and play. This is a great opportunity to get them re-energized about Bible quizzing instead of burnt out midway through. And if they work hard, maybe they can earn the opportunity to go to one of these regional tournaments where they get to quiz against teams from other states, sometimes other countries if we have Canadian teams. I believe our closest extravaganza in terms of Ohio is going to be in Illinois this coming year. There's also one in Maryland. And so you can find more information regarding extravaganzas on the Senior Bible Quizzing website, as well as your document here, the Starting from Scratch document. Now, in Ohio, when I plan how many verses you have to know each month, I do that independent of extravaganza. My goal is that Ohio quizzers have learned all their verses by Ohio State Finals. And so make sure that you stay on track with what your district requires you to know, all right, and not necessarily where you need to be for extravaganza. And we always try to keep you ahead of schedule in Ohio. Then we go to nationals. Nationals is the culmination of a year's worth of hard work. At district finals, the top few teams earn the right to represent their district at the North American Bible Quizzing or Junior Bible Quizzing Tournament. This is an exciting time where you have over 100 teams from across North America competing with the verses they've learned all year long. And this year, Junior Bible Quizzing Nationals is taking place in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's July 17th through 21st. You might notice that's earlier than usual. Part of that has to do with Youth Congress and needing to move up senior quizzing, and so juniors also moved up. So July 17th through 21st is Junior Bible Quizzing Nationals in St. Louis, Missouri. You can find more information at sundayschooldivision.com. But the North American Bible Quizzing Tournament for seniors in Indianapolis, Indiana, July 21st to 25th. This is the first time that Youth Congress will ever be held in a football stadium. We outgrew basketball arenas for Youth Congress, and so we're so excited that this year we're going to be occupying Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. And so because of that, we're going to have Bible Quizzing Nationals in Indianapolis. We don't have details regarding the convention center or the hotels at this time. That will come in the spring and early summer. But you'll notice that Junior Nationals ends the 21st of July, and Seniors begins the 21st of July. It's a tight window, and we understand that. But Juniors usually ends in the early afternoon, and then you'll have that time to travel to Indianapolis. And all we're doing that Friday, the 21st, is doing our orientation for seniors. So you just have to get there by the late evening to make it to orientation in time. One little tidbit that's exciting this year, this is the first year that I can remember that our Senior Nationals is going to be going from Saturday through Tuesday, and then our banquet will be Tuesday evening. In other words, we're not going to have the banquet the first night of Youth Congress. So you don't have to leave service early at Youth Congress on Wednesday in order to make it to the banquet that ends after midnight, and then you're exhausted. And so we're going to really keep the events separate. Senior Nationals and Youth Congress will be kept separate so that you can really devote your time and energy and enjoy each one. So you want to start a Bible quizzing team. You want to have a successful ministry. How do you get started at your local church? That is the challenge that every coach faces. And so I want to go over with you some strategies, some planning and promoting strategies on how you can get people excited. Because if you're watching at home, this is the time to get people involved at your church. The fall is planning time. The fall is preparation time. And so this is when you should be promoting. There are many different ways you can promote at your local church. One of my favorite ways is to first ask your pastor, get approval from your pastor, and have about a 5-minute pre-service promotion spot on your main Sunday service. All right? So this is when people have already gathered into the sanctuary, and you play an intriguing video on the screen, and then you talk with them about Bible quizzing and how it changes lives. You can share your personal testimony. You can get people excited, then have a parent meeting, and get started. There's a lot of videos that you can use. We have at ohiojbq.com 2 junior Bible quizzing videos that were created by Gary Kufel, who's a junior quizzing coach, a National Coach of the Year in Toledo, Ohio. We also have many different videos from the General Youth Division. And I'm going to repeat this website many, many times, but it's seniorBibleQuizzing.com. So right now on the screen, we're going to pull up some websites that are going to be very important for you as a coach and as a parent and maybe as a quizzer. All right, so right now on our screen, we've pulled up seniorBibleQuizzing.com. All of those words are spelled out fully. seniorBibleQuizzing.com. This is meant to be your one-stop shop for promotions with Bible quizzing. And so here we are on the home page, and you can see a lot of ads scrolling through. Right now on the screen, it says Building a Successful Bible Quizzing Ministry, and Brother Austin Span's going to be talking about that a little bit more. You can buy resources like it's showing you now. But I'd like to go to the Resources tab, okay? And so it's midway through right there, our Resources tab. This is full of resources that you can use. So if you're thinking, hey, I'd really like a PowerPoint slide with all of Bible Quizzing's cool branding logos that Heather Poland from the General Youth Division created, then you can find all these really neat resources on the website. And so at the very top, you have 2017 logo, our rooted logo, which I'll show you here. It's this awesome tree design with our roots on the bottom. You can have these resources to print off flyers, and you can create PowerPoint slides. We have our material for the 2017 season, and so for those that are here with a packet, you can see what are the verses that we're learning this year in the rooted study. There is also what are called perpetual logos. So you can see on the top left side of the website, it says SBQ in red and black letters. That's called our perpetual logo. And so if you want something that isn't isolated to a particular year, if you want to print something like a banner like you see right here with the SBQ logo, you can use our perpetual logo for those things. Go down a little bit further, you can see some articles that were written by some of the pioneers of the Bible quizzing ministry. These are really helpful articles. And then you have some resources. Now, it says near documents at the very top, question writer list. This is a list of people across the country who are writing questions. Coach, have you ever been in a situation where you're running out of questions to ask in quiz practice? Maybe you bought all the ones you could buy and you read all the quizzers, all the questions you had. Well, you can click on the question writer list and you can purchase more questions from these different writers that are positioned all across the country. They can email you more questions. The second thing you'll see there is 101 things to do in a Bible quizzing practice. And this is a resource that we helped develop a couple years ago. I have a copy right here. It's literally 101 different games, activities, and fundraisers that you can do in a Bible quizzing practice. If you're coaching your team for the better part of 8 months, twice a week, maybe more, you're going to run out of ideas. Coaches, sometimes it's really hard to create fresh, new ideas to keep quizzers interested. And so if you get to the place where you're doing the same thing every week, it's about time to open up 101 things to do in a Bible quizzing practice, because we have games with different goals: quoting, contesting, team building, motivation, studying out the scriptures, how to fundraise, surveys, locating drills. All these resources are found in 101 Things to Do in Bible Quizzing Practice. We actually have a full 47 video from our workshop 2 years ago on this document. So I won't go into all of it. You can check out that video on the Youth Division website. But this is a great resource to help you keep your practices fresh and exciting. Now, a little bit further, we have actually some study goals. You can track your quizzers as they're studying by keeping track of how many verses they've learned. We have another resource that we helped develop called How to Start a Bible Quizzing Ministry. This is a very simple, basic document on someone who is completely new to Bible quizzing. Like, how do I get started from the very, very beginning? How to Start a Bible Quizzing Ministry is a really neatly designed, once again, Heather Poland from the GYD developed this attractive document that helps you know, okay, if I'm starting from nothing, where do I go from here? What resources are out there? Where do I buy a buzzer system? What is a buzzer system? So you can check that out on How to Start a Bible Quizzing Ministry. Now, we have what's called new programs here, and this is a really neat area where there's YouTube videos on the basics of Bible quizzing. Like, how do you read a question, or a quiz question, just like the Quizmaster does? What's a contest? How do I contest? You know, what's an interruption? How do I know when to buzz in faster? How do I memorize a verse? There's a lot of different ways to memorize a verse. You can see that on our YouTube videos here on our website. And then we have our 2014 Ohio Coach Workshop on there. We have our 2015 Ohio Coach Workshop on there. And then to the bottom, my favorite part, our awesome promotion videos that were designed by Brother Ryan O'Neill and his staff with the General Youth Division. And so we have videos that maybe you've seen before, videos like Who Will Tell the World, Focused, Obsession, Go Viral. And then there's a new video, it's actually at the very top of this page where we started. It's a 2017 Rooted video, and you definitely want to check that out. I really love the ending of this one. It's a neat resource. And so when you're going to youth rallies, when you're at the local church, play a video, get people excited about it, and then help them know how to get started. There's a few other ways that you can start a quiz program at your local church. We're talking about how do you get your local church excited about Bible quizzing. You could visit each of the Sunday school classes and talk with them for a few minutes. You could set up a buzzer system and let the quizzers buzz in. You could have one-on-one conversations with the parents. It's never been easier to start a Bible quizzing ministry than now. When I started Bible quizzing, we didn't have any of these resources. We had word of mouth. We had phenomenal experiences from our pioneers of the ministry. We didn't have documents or videos or websites to use. We didn't have electronic buzzer systems. And so these are really neat ways for you to get involved. You're going to need help. Get some assistant coaches, get some parents' help. But to start a Bible quizzing team, you need at least 2 quizzers that are the same age bracket. We talked about the age brackets, 15 to 18, 12 to 14, 9 to 11, 8 and under. You need 2 quizzers. A team can have between 2 and 5 quizzers, and you can have up to 2 coaches on that particular team. So you want to get started, but what do you buy? What you're going to buy. And so before we take away this website, I want to show you a couple last things on the Senior Bible Quizzing website. There's also a store where you can buy some cool merchandise. There's a really neat shirt they had at Nationals that says "Train Like We" an 8-part cross-reference. It's a really cool hoodie that you can check out. There's also some contact information. You can get a hold of the national director, or the Reaver, or the Fuller, Ryan O'Neill. All right, we're going to take away this page. And next we're going to go to the BQ Powers website. So our official vendor for Bible quizzing, their names are Gary and Joanne Powers. And they live in Texas, and they do a phenomenal job at creating resources for us to use to learn our verses. And so if you want to have laminated, color-coded verse listings, you can get it on bqpowers.com. If you want to have a concordance and a rule manual, you can get it on this website. If you want to buy questions to read in the quiz practice, you can get it on this website. They have laminated flip books that fit inside a purse that have all the verses on it. They have flashcards that come in a little cardboard box, and You can use these flashcards to memorize your verses. And so at the very least, you need a couple important resources. Number one, and this is slightly facetious, but this is so critical. The number one most important thing that you're going to buy is a rule manual. Okay? Coach, you will save yourself so much heartache and so much question confusion if you buy a rule manual and you read it. Because 90% of the questions that you're going to ask as a coach are found in the rule manual. These are simple things like, how does a quiz work? How does a tournament work? How does state finals work? Am I allowed to contest this way? Who has to stand up when? All of these details, you're going to save yourself a lot of fouls if you buy a rule manual and read it. We're going to go over some of those tournament details a little bit later. Number two, you should have the software to keep track of the score. And we'll find a little bit more about that later. You're going to need practice questions. In order to get your quizzers ready for a tournament, you have to ask the tournament quality questions. And so on this website, you can purchase questions, hundreds of questions, that you can ask your quizzers throughout the year. You're going to need a verse listing, okay? So they have these really neat laminated, color-coded verse listings that have all the verses and which words happen one time, which words happen 2 times, and more. You can buy the laminated material on this website. You can also purchase your flashcards. Those are important. Most quizzers need 2 things to get involved in Bible quizzing. Most quizzers need the laminated verse lists, either flipbook form or an 8.5 by 11 form, and a box of verse cards. You're looking at probably about $22 per quizzer to get started. If you're a coach starting from scratch, it's going to be a little bit more expensive because you're going to need a little bit more resources. So on our form, on our starting from scratch document, we have a list of things that you need to buy. Then you start a team, right? You got people excited at your church about it. You got a bunch of quizzers who want to get involved. You order the material from bqpowers.com. You start practicing once or twice a week, right? And then you get involved with your local tournaments. Now, I mentioned earlier, tournaments go January through June for most districts. Some districts start in December, some start in February, but most start in January. And you're going to have to register for that tournament. So you have to find out who your coordinator is, and you have to find out how they want you to register. In Ohio, we have our registration fees and how to register located on this form. Once again, for the Ohio teams, we have a central website called ohiobqconnect.com. Once again, that's ohiobqconnect.com. That's how you can register, find out where the tournaments are located. We don't have our dates finalized because the board hasn't met to approve the dates yet, so we'll let you know as soon as we find out. Now, let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest changes that's happened in Bible quizzing over the last 10 years. We're going to go to upcquiz.com. This next website, I think, has revolutionized Bible quizzing more than anything within the last 30 years. This website has tournament information that goes back 5-6 years. This website, upcquiz.com, we'll go back one page here, and we'll show you the beginning of the website. So upcquiz.com was designed by a developer, once again in Texas. Texas has given us all of our good stuff. We got the Powers in Texas, Ruth Wilson, but Sister Ruth Wilson designed software to keep track of the score of a tournament live on a laptop, and then all the statistics automatically upload on this website. Okay, so you can actually watch a quiz from home, question by question, live, if it's set up appropriately at the venue. And so on this website, upcquiz.com, you can purchase a buzzer system, which looks like this. These electronic buzzers hook into a laptop, which has software that keeps track of who buzzed in, what the score is at that moment, how many more questions till the quizzer quizzes out. And so you buy this, which is around $200. You need to have a laptop. You can use your own. And then you need the software on the laptop, which is about $20. And then you can actually keep track of that quiz live using all of these neat resources. All right? And so This website, ubcquiz.com, is where you buy a BuzzerBox, and it's where you buy the software updates each year. And then you can watch the tournaments from home by going to this website. There's also some really neat games for kids, like Bubble Blast. There's all kinds of locating drills and things that you can use. Video games to help them learn the verses more. But this is the tournament feed, and so we're going to click on the very first tournament. This is Beginner Nationals from 2016. And you can see that it lists who won the tournament, how many points did they average in each individual quiz, who were the top quizzers at that tournament. If we scroll down a little bit more, how do we rank those quizzers with various different statistical measures? A little bit further down, it'll show you the actual bracket, okay, who quizzed when. It's a double elimination bracket. It shows you how many 10-point questions did your team average at that moment. And so for all of our numbers nerds, this is a great resource where you can track how are your users doing. When they interrupt a question, what's their percentage correct and incorrect? But right here, we're going to keep it right here for a moment. You see on the all-tournament team rankings that there's 3 different ways that we can measure the individual quizzer's performance. On the left side, you have the traditional points per quiz average. The old way that we used to keep track of how a quizzer did in a tournament was we would add up how many points they won. So let's say they quizzed 5 quizzes, or 100 points in each quiz. They got 500 points, right? Then you divide that number by how many quizzes they quizzed, 5. So that quizzer averaged 100 points per quiz. That's the traditional points per game average. This past year, the General Youth Division voted and approved a new statistical measure to determine the individual trophies that are passed out at a tournament. So now when you go to Extravaganza or you go to Nationals, they're not going to use the traditional points per game statistical measure. They're going to use what we call percent contribution. That's the middle column. So in the middle, it will show you what percentage of points did that quizzer earn before the quiz was locked. And so this is a little bit new, and it's going to sound a little foreign for a moment. We've actually been doing this in Ohio for the last 4 years, and it's a great way to help track the top quizzers at that tournament. So I drafted a document. You can pull that out of your packet. It's called Percent Contribution, and it explains what is this new way of measuring individual awards. Okay, so we're going to go through this document a little bit. Once again, this is going to be available for download on the CW Quizzing website for those watching at home. Also, if you email me, JAY, the number 2, my last name, LYTLE, @gmail.com, I can email you this right away. But percent contribution, this is how we keep track of individual achievements at a tournament. So instead of adding up how many points a quizzer earned, we're going to find out what percentage of points in that quiz did that quizzer earn, while the quiz could still be won or lost. And so let's say, for example, senior quiz, there's 20 questions, right? 20 questions, and there's 350 points available, okay? Let's say a quiz is locked at question 16. By locked, we mean the quiz has already been won. There aren't enough points for the other team to win anymore. So locked means the quiz is essentially competitively over. If the quiz is locked at 16, then that means 240 of those 350 points were determined. 240 points have already been determined. If one of your quizzers got 120 of those 240 points, that means they got 50% of the points that were available up until that quiz was locked. That's incredible. That quizzer got half of all the points available before that quiz was locked. So their percent contribution would be 50%. That's a phenomenal percent contribution. The reason we're doing this is because after a quiz is locked, if your team doesn't buzz in anymore, it's almost like you're penalizing your quizzers. After the quiz is locked, those leftover points that happen afterward, if you choose not to buzz in because you want to win gracefully, if you choose not to buzz in because you don't want to run up the score, it's almost like you're penalizing your quizzers if we're going back to the old system of total points. And if you choose not to buzz in, in some ways, we're not really finding out who the top quizzers are at that tournament. The top quizzers are the ones who are earning the points while the quiz can still be won or lost. Those are competitive points that they're earning. And so this is a much better way to determine who the top quizzers are. And so it removes the incentive to run up the score. It removes the penalty for not running up the score, and it actually more accurately identifies the top quizzer. We have a reference guide at the bottom as to what's a good percent contribution. In other words, 40% is a tournament for the ages. It's amazing. If they're 35%, they're an elite all-star. 30% is an all-star. 25% is an aspiring ace. 20% is a top-notch contributor. 15% is a serious helper, and 10% a savvy supporter. So you can kind of get an idea. We know that this is a foreign concept, and so we created this guide to help you know, okay, what percent contribution, what's a good one, and what can we still work on? Okay, so you can find out more about this, but this is at all Ohio tournaments and at extravaganzas and at nationals. This is the new way that individual trophies are going to be passed out. All right, let's see. I think we are ready to move on. Our next section, our next topic in our Ohio Bible Quiz Workshop is going to be a new resource that was designed by the GYD. And so we're going to have Brother Austin Spann. He is both a junior and a senior quiz master in Ohio, and he's been involved in quizzing for a very long time. He was a quizzer for 9 years, a coach for 8 years, and he's been a quiz master in Ohio for the last 4 years. And so he's going to come and talk about this great new resource that you can find for senior Bible quizzing.
All right, I'm just going to talk to you just for a few minutes and just kind of let you know a little bit about this resource because I'm really excited about it. It's written by some of the most knowledgeable people that you're going to find about Bible quizzing. My brother and sister Walker, Brother Russ Folbear, and Brother Ben Cohen, and they did a phenomenal job on this. There was a book that Brother Walker had out that I bought when I first started coaching, and I used it every year. I would try to go back and familiarize myself with some of the concepts in it, and I thought he did a great job, and I always pulled something new away when I read. So when they came out with this and they kind of revamped it a little bit, I was excited to read it, and there's a lot of good new information in it. I've been involved in quizzing now. I guess this will be going on 20 years, and I still learned a lot from this resource. There's still a lot that you can take from it, no matter how long you've been quizzing. And one thing I really like about it is really uplifting. I really like the title of it, Building a Successful Bible Quiz Ministry, because it drives home the point that's what this is. This is a ministry. And so I think it's so important that we remember that this isn't just a competition, it's a ministry. And so the first chapter talks about a blueprint for your quiz team. And it talks about the importance of spending time in prayer and fasting. And I always like being reminded of that because this is a ministry. So it is so important that we take time to pray, that we take time to fast for it. This is as important a ministry as we can have our young people involved in. It's important that we plan for the year. It's important that we make sure that we get the right people involved, that we make sure that our pastor is on board with us, because this is a ministry in their church, so we need to have our pastor's support as we get ready for this. Parents are a very, very important part of Bible quizzing. Parents are the ones that are going to make the real commitment. Kids can get excited about quizzing, and they might be excited to start, but parents are making a huge commitment. So it's very important to have them be involved from the beginning. And it's important to have assistance with your quiz ministry. It's the more people that you have helping out with practices, the more things that you can do in those practices, and it's good to have someone that can step in. If as a head coach, if you're not able to be there for a practice, it's good to not have to cancel it every time you have to miss, or if something comes up and you can't make a tournament, it's good to have someone trained so that they can step in for you. The next thing it talks about is setting up weekly practices. That's an important thing to start off with from the beginning. Every quiz ministry needs to have a weekly quiz practice. Quiz practices are where you can make sure that quizzes are held accountable for the work that they're putting in. It's where you can do your training and your mentoring, and those are important parts of coaching a quiz team. Be punctual to those quiz practices. Set up quiz stations if you can. Begin and end your practices in prayer. I think that's a very important point. You should always begin and end with prayer because, once again, it's a ministry. And We want God in every part of it. Having quiz quoted is another important function of quiz practices. What I mean by that is we check our quizzers and make sure that they've learned the things that they say they've learned. And sometimes they really do think that they've learned it, but they don't realize that maybe they don't know it as well as they thought they did. So it's important to have them quoted. It's important to have them go through and show you that they've learned the things that they've said they've learned. You can set up a memorization schedule at the beginning of the year, and this is good to do. One thing to keep in mind is that you need to have weeks during the year where they don't have to memorize. It's important to take some time and give your quizzers time to catch up if they've gotten behind, or just to take some extra time to review, especially around holidays. You don't want them to be punished because they were out of town visiting grandma for Christmas. We don't want to have a quizzer get behind because of that. So make sure that you set up some time when they can just have time to review. Jay already talked about promotion. That's an important thing at the beginning of the year. And so the only thing I'll throw in or add to that is when I do my promotions, I know I always like to reach out to parents just as much as the quizzers. I like to promote to the parents because they're the ones that realize the real importance of this ministry. Quizzers get incentivized by trophies and things, but parents can see the real reason for quizzing, and they're the ones, like I said, that are making the real commitment. So it's important to promote to them. Let your quizzers know up front what the requirements are for the year. Let them know what it's going to take. Be honest with them, and let the parents know what the requirements are to stay involved in the ministry. It's important to do that up front and not to try and do that as you go. The next chapter in the book talks about laying the foundation, and this is talking about things that you want to tell your quizzers, things that are good for them to know. It's so important for them to pray before and after they study. This is something I always like to drive home with my quizzers. Their practice time will be so much more effective if they pray before and after they begin their study. Prayer is a vital part of this. Teach the kids about balance and priorities. Quizzing should not be something where if they get involved, they can't do anything else. Quizzing should be a part of their lives, but they should be able to be involved in other things. They just have to find the balance, and you have to help them with their prioritization. Learning God's word should be a priority, so it should be an important thing. They can't be involved in other things. It's important that your quizzers are held accountable. That's going to help keep them motivated. It's going to help them continue to want to study. And one of the ways that this resource brings up about being accountable are weekly timesheets. And here's an example of how to give them a weekly timesheet. It gives an example of one that you can give them so that they can turn in each week during their practices, and they can tell you how much time they've spent and what they've spent their time on. It's important to keep quizzers accountable, to keep them going throughout the year. Another thing that it mentions that I really they're learning. I think especially senior quizzers, it will help them immensely retain the things that they learn and understand the big picture of what they're learning. So it's good to have them go through things. There's different memorization methods that you might want to go through with them. Last year in our workshop, we went through, I think, 4 different memorization techniques. There's different things that work for different quizzers, so find what works best for your quizzer and help them find what works best for them so that they can do that each week. But most importantly, of course, is their review. That's more important than memorizing new verses. If they don't know the verses that they've already learned, then they're not going to be making progress by moving forward and by memorizing new verses. Take time with flashcards. Show them how to use flashcards. Spend time on problem areas. If there's an area where they're struggling, there are verses that they're not able to quote correctly, spend more time on those verses. Middle of the year, you're not going to have to spend nearly as much time on Acts chapter 1, verse 1 as you are on whatever the most recent things they learn. Have them quote out loud to someone. This is very important that they quote out loud at times because they might not realize that they learned a verse wrong. We had a quizzer once where we got to state finals and he quoted a verse and it was incorrect and he contested and I let him know what the word was that he missed and he said, oh, well, I've been quoting that wrong the entire year then because that's how I learned it. And he never realized that he had one of the words wrong, when you quote out loud, that's how you catch things like that. Cross quoting is another good tool. That means pick a verse, as in verse 1, and go through every chapter and do 1 verse 1, chapter 2 verse 1, and go through. That helps when a quizzer interrupts a question and all they have is the verse. And make sure that when they're quoting to someone that person is reading the verse to them and not just showing them the verses, because the quizmaster is going to be saying verses. They're not going to see it visually. So it's good to make sure that they hear the verses and then quote them. Writing questions is another good thing for quizzers to do. It really helps them get into the mind of a quizmaster, and of a question writer, I should say, and it helps them understand how the questions work. So having them write 10 questions a week, maybe telling them at least one has to be a cross-reference, that's a good thing to do. And then charting, I won't go into that because we could spend a whole lot of time on that, but this resource talks about charting, which is 1 time, 2 time, 3 time words, places, names, things like that. Those are all important things to spend time on. Next chapter I'll go over is, they call it maintaining morale, and it's very important to have incentives for quizzers. That's what keeps quizzers involved, is when there's incentives and there's rewards. That's what gets them involved in the first place. So you need to have incentives for them throughout the year. The most common incentive are tournaments. Make sure that they get to a tournament at least once a month. Try to get them somewhere, and if you can't do that, then try to find another way to incentivize them in between tournaments. Short-term and long-term incentives. They need to have different things that keep them going, that keep them motivated throughout the year. And you want to try and ramp up to get to the end of the year and keep them all the way involved all the way till the end of the year. If you can't make it to a tournament for a year, a scrimmage is a very good thing to do, especially if you're a new team. It's good to get to have that competition. When we started a ministry, one year we made sure to have a scrimmage before the first tournament just to get some of the nerves out of the way. Some of the other teams in the area were new also, and it was very helpful for the quizzers to see what a tournament was like by doing a scrimmage first. In one of the last chapters in the book talks about preparing for inspection, and that's getting them ready for the tournament itself. And one of the things it talks about is qualifying quizzers for a tournament. A lot of teams don't do this. A lot of teams do this. Qualifying quizzers means setting a requirement that they have to meet in order to go to a tournament. I like the quote that they put in the book, "Don't sacrifice excellence for inclusivity." I had never thought of it that way, but that was a very good way of putting it, that if a quizzer is not working hard enough to make it to a tournament, if they've not met the requirements that you've set, as long as you set those requirements before the year begins, then you don't have to feel bad if you don't make it to a tournament, because it's not you making that choice, it's them. But you just have to make sure that they understand what those requirements are beforehand. And so you want to do everything you can to motivate them to meet those requirements so that they can be at the tournament. But going to the tournament sometimes can be a great reward for them. And you don't want to qualify based on points scored during their practices, because not every quizzer, no matter how well they know the material, sometimes they're just not as good at answering questions. And what's most important is that they're learning their verses, not that they're able to answer specific questions on them. So when you qualify them, you want to do it based on their quoting, not on their points scored. And so we go to a tournament, and I'm not going to talk about this much because we've got another, we've got time set apart to specifically talk about this later. So I'll mention, as you go to a tournament, some of the things that it mentions to do before a quiz, as your team is sitting ready to quiz. Listen to the questions. Have your quizzers listen to the questions that are being read, because different question writers write differently, and different quiz masters read differently. And so take time to let the quizzers get used to the quiz master and to the questions. Maybe go over some questions with them before they get up to the board. have them watch other teams and see how other teams are quizzing so that they don't have to get up there and go overboard with their interrupting if it's not necessary. Another thing that they mentioned here was holding a boot camp before a big tournament. This, I know a lot of churches will do this before state finals or before nationals, or they will hold extra practices before certain tournaments. This is something that's really good to keep the motivation up and to get quizzers to put in that last push before their big tournaments. And so the very last chapter of this book that they've put is called From Pete Rose to Donald Duck. And I'm not going to give a summary of it because I would not be doing it justice. I just want to urge everyone to read this. Take time to read about this story. It's Brother and Sister Walker talking about their experience when they realized the importance of taking this from being a competition to making it a ministry. And it's very uplifting when I read this and it puts things into perspective. This is a ministry. In the last page of this book, it's called Zach in Action. I highly recommend printing it out, giving it to every quizzer that you have, because it's something that they need to read throughout the year and make sure that they're having their priorities correct and make sure that they're doing this for the right reason. And so that's the end of this book. I urge everyone to read it. It's free. They send it out, which is very nice. You can get it online. I have a PDF of it, and I love being able to just search, highlight on the PDF, whatever you need to do. But I highly recommend getting a hold of this and reading it.
Thank you, Austin. I'll just show everyone watching at home. This is what the resource looks like. It's Building a Bible Quizzing Ministry, Successful Bible Quizzing Ministry. And so it's 49 pages. That's part of the reason why we didn't print it off to pass out this evening, this afternoon. But you can download this resource. You go to seniorBibleQuizzing.com, main home page, click on the banner, and you fill out your email, and then they'll send it right to you electronically. Or I can always send it to you as well. Once again, my email is J, the number 2, and then Lytle, Lytle, @gmail.com. We'd be glad to send that to you, but please read this resource from Brother Martin and Sister Claudette Walker, Wilbert, and Ben Cohen. So great resource. We're really excited about that nationally. And so next, we'd like to transition to a day in the life of a quiz parent. A lot of coaches nationally, they're doing double duty. So they're both a coach and a parent, and these individuals are going to come down and have done this for quite a long time. It's difficult to be a quiz parent. When Deuteronomy chapter 6 says, "These words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently to thy children," we really discover what that diligently means when you get involved with Bible quizzing. And when you talk with them, thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, these are commands given us by God in the Scriptures. And it happens to be the one area of Bible quizzing that I have no experience, because I've never been a parent yet, and so I've never been a quiz parent. And so we asked Brother and Sister Glover to come. The Glovers, their reputation nationally is well known. They're the runner-up coach of the year in Experience Bible Quizzing in 2014. They're actually 6-time national champions, spanning 3 different divisions, and they've helped lead some of the most successful Bible quizzing teams from a competitive standpoint. But I've also known them as friends for many years. Tremendous helpers here in Ohio District, supporting our officials, supporting our programs, and they've been quiz parents for over a decade. And I don't know if anyone nationally devotes more time to Bible quizzing than the Glovers. It permeates every area of their life, and you can see that with how they raise their children and their beautiful daughters, and Tori, who's at campus ministry at Ohio State teaching Bible studies. People are coming to the Lord there. We're so excited to have the Glovers, and so we want to bring them now, and we want them to talk about a day in the life of a quiz parent.
Okay, so a day in the life of a quiz parent. Well, it can be chaotic, a lot of confusion, but at the end of the day, a lot of rewards to it. So, not every day is rosy, just like not every day of our lives are. And so we just kind of want to go point by point here, hit some of the main highlight areas, and give you a look inside of our home, if you will, for a day. Planning a calendar year, learning and reviewing. As we start out a new year, one of the key things we do is set weekly and monthly goals. We use these to make sure the child is ready for upcoming tournaments and practices. So just as Brother Lytle said, he tries to make sure that our quizzers are ready at the end of the year for state finals. We look at each of those tournaments that are upcoming to make sure that our individual children will be prepared and ready for what's going to be required at those tournaments. We also do that on a practice level at our church, so that we know as our coordinators set schedules out and as the coaches set out schedules to make sure that our children again are lined up with what's going to be required at that practice. What you don't want to do is, as a parent, your child to show up at a practice or at a tournament and not have any knowledge, first of all, of what was going to be required, or secondly, had knowledge of it and they're not ready. That's very embarrassing for the child and also the reflection on the parents. So make sure that they're prepared for what's going to be required. Knowing your child's learning style is something that's helped us over the years. We have a document that we pulled up. There are a lot of them online. This is just one that kind of stood out to me. Learning style inventory that gives you kind of an idea and breakdown there of whether visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner. I took this myself. I thought, wow, I'm an auditory learner through and through. When I did the assessment, I had one question that I answered that was actually auditory. I found out I'm a kinesthetic learner, probably because I don't like to sit still very much. So find out what style learner your quizzer is, and it'll help a lot to use the resources that are available to plug into that style. Also, keep in mind no two children are the same. So I have 4 children. They've been successful in Bible quizzing at different levels, but they're not the same. I can't have an expectation for one because, my oldest one performed a certain way, but the next one's going to be that way, or else that's not acceptable. So you have to look at each child, and as a parent of multiple children, you have to set goals and expectations that are realistic and that are fair for each child. Each one is different, just as each of us are. Second thing, reading to the average week, schedules. Schedules are vital. This is what we've lived by over the years. This is kind of a printout we have. I can send this to you too, but this was in the original book by Brother Walker. Just a sample schedule that you can use. We've used this one now. This will be 15 year running that we've been quiz parents, and we live and die by this schedule. So the way that works is every Sunday night after church on Sunday night, before I go to bed that night, I go through and I list out for the week what I want the kids to accomplish that week. And so this is my part of it, which is kind of the easy part if you think about it. My next part is the day-to-day part, which is coming up next, of actually executing the schedule. So we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, practice is Tuesday night. We're going through Acts chapter 2. How are we going to get there by Tuesday night? The tournament's coming up in 2 weeks. We're still a little ways off in our memorizing. How we develop a plan, a daily plan to get there. Again, with the schedules, the key thing there is to be consistent. This is a daily thing. The scripture refers to it as our daily bread, and it has to be a daily thing that kids have a schedule they can follow, and they're reasonable schedules. We don't put 6 hours worth of studying on here. Now, if they don't do their 1 hour on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Saturday they may have 5 or 6 hours of study time they have to do. So again, make sure they're consistent. Have an accountability with the schedule so that you're signing off on that. You can take it into quiz practice to their coach, to the coordinator, so that they see that they're keeping up with their material. If there's any question on that. The second point you want to make is Bible quizzing has to be the priority of every day, every week. We're instructed in the scriptures to seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all things will be added to us in Matthew 6:33. And we found this so true with quizzing, that as we prioritize, we set God's Word to be the paramount thing in our house, and the tool to do that that's worked for us is Bible quizzing. That all these other things fall into place. So one of the things we urge parents to do is do their child's quizzing early in the day if possible. And there's sometimes schedules, and you got to get them off to school, and all those kind of things can interfere with that to some degree. But get them off to the right start of their day. Again, it's a scriptural principle. Do it first, and that way it builds on their day. Use their material as family devotion. So dig into the verses so that they better understand them. Again, if it's just words on a page, it's not going to accomplish what the goal is, and that's to get it into their heart. So dig into those, do it as a family, have discussions about the verses, the chapters that they're memorizing. Be ready to answer questions on those as the kids have them as well. And then the parents learn the verses too. This is something we've tried to do. Not every year have we memorized all the verses, but most years we know the majority of the verses that they have. So as parents, that's very helpful because I can hear it when they're quoting, that wasn't quite right, or that's not the way that one really goes. And it also helps as we're coaching as well to get the material quicker and to be able to look at things and follow along easier that way. I'm going to have my wife come and tell you about the routine of an average day. And again, some days these are real smooth. I'll call her from work at lunchtime and say, how's quizzing going, or how are they doing today? And get a good report. And other days, well, we have some things to work through. So she'll give you some tips on how to work through some.
Okay, so for a routine of an average day, we want to take a look into my life, which is very, very busy. We travel a lot, we're on the go a lot, so I have to make use of my time very wisely. The first thing is you've got to follow the weekly schedule. I live by the schedule my husband makes Sunday mornings, Sunday nights I should say, and I try to accomplish everything for that day. Being consistent is actually the key to being a good parent of a quarter. You've got to do something every day. Whether it's just if you're taking a day off of memorizing, or if you're memorizing for that day, you've got to do something each and every day. Use incentives as needed. You don't want to use incentives all the time because the kids will get used to having them. But simple things like candy, money works wonderfully. But if your child is a young quizzer, a beginner quizzer, extra playtime. If your kids are in video games, extra maybe Xbox time, like a half hour extra. You don't want to do it too often, but sometimes you need incentives. And I have used incentives for my kids many times. Biggest thing is remember the why behind Bible quizzing, the Deuteronomy 6. We are required to train our children every day in the scripture. For us, I've said it many times, Bible quizzing works for us because it actually helps us train our children in the scriptures. And if you're not using Bible quizzing, then what are you using to train your child every day with the scriptures? It's good to do a devotion, and that's wonderful, but how are they memorizing those verses that in your devotion that you're doing? And we find that Bible quizzing helps us to have children learn the scriptures. Next point would be, how long does it take in my day? Well, in my day, it could take about an hour to an hour and a half. Before, I used to have 4 kids that I would quote in every day, but our oldest 2, Elaine and Tori, have graduated from quizzing now, so we only have 2 left. We have a senior and a junior quizzer, so it doesn't take as long. But I would say to start out, it would take probably an average quizzer 30 minutes for new verses per day, depending on how many you're learning. 30 minutes to review your verses that you've already learned, and about 15 minutes for maybe some charting that you might want to do. We don't chart every day, but we do review our verses every day. And we don't do the entire amount. We usually break it up into thirds for our kids. That's what it seems to work very well. So about third to a half closer to a tournament or a big tournament. But 30 minutes a day for new verses, 30 minutes for review. So you're looking at about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes if you're doing charting as well. However, it doesn't take us that long, and the key is because it's being consistent. Just to give you an example, last year, our son Seth was an experience, his first year of actually senior quizzing, but we bumped him all the way up to experience quizzing. And he learned I think 550 verses. And on the way to nationals, we decided to see how quickly he could quote. So we could understand each word, but how quickly he could quote all 550 verses. And he did it in 37 minutes. I mean, it was just incredible time. But the key to that was we did it consistently every day through the quiz. Eden, I think she did her junior material in about 30 minutes, all of it on the way to nationals. So consistency really is the key. So in an average day for us, like for now, this past week, it took us about, I would say about 20 minutes for the day to do our new verses and our review. It didn't take that long. The kids, the more experience they have, the quicker they can learn verses. Some kids don't learn that quickly, and that's fine. But the key is to learn at least something every day so you can meet your goal by the end of the week. As far as charting, I'll go through that real quick. What we do is charting for juniors and beginners. I really only require 1 and 2 time words for our beginner and junior quizzers and verse beginnings. If you're an experienced junior quizzer, for similar phrases is a good thing to do. Seniors, we do the same thing. We add in about 3-4 time words and similar phrases. We don't do charting every day. We do it about 3 or 4 times a week. Not every day. I wouldn't have time to do it. As far as how do I fit that in, because like we do travel a lot, I do a lot in the car, a lot. We listen to the music. It's a great resource, especially for junior quizzers. If you like to sing, get the CDs, the music CDs. They're absolutely wonderful. I learn all the verses every year by the music. And I couldn't quote them verbatim, you know, if I just probably had to, if you asked me what the verse was, but I could sing it to you. And I'm not a good singer, but I do like the music. So we do that. As far as the flip charts, I didn't bring my flip chart up, but these are invaluable to have. Every parent should have a flip chart. It has the verses. This is an intermediate pocket verse. It fits nicely in your purse. It also fits nicely in the back pocket of men's jeans. And I use that everywhere, even in the grocery store. If we haven't got our review in, or I'll pull out the flip chart. I know the verse is a lot hard, especially this year for us. So I will say, okay, start quoting to me. And we'll get our review in the grocery store, which is actually a great witnessing tool because everybody else is looking around like, what are you doing? And sometimes it's a conversation starter, and I'll be able to talk to somebody about quizzing, which is really neat. Common pitfalls. We'll move to the next section. Too many days off. Again, be consistent. Do something every day. Vacations are okay, but still try to do something on vacation. I'll give you a for instance. We were at Disney World last year. In the line, even at Kings Island, we are quoting our verses. Again, we pull out a flip chart. Yes, I took my flip chart to Disney. I also take it to Kings Island, whatever amusement parks, wherever we're at. I'll pull the flip chart out and I'll have them start quoting. Our coordinator at church, she does the same thing, Sister Downs. We were at Kings Island for a quiz trip. For the quizzers, it was an award for them, and she had them quoting verses in the line. So do something every day. Like I said, vacations are great, but still try to do something while you're on vacation. That way the kids don't forget. Burnout. Point number 2, burnout. Kids can get tired of quoting. They can get tired of doing their verses every day. So change your scenery. Sometimes we'll go outside. We'll go to a park. Just mix it up. You know your child better than anyone else. So just switch it up a little bit. Another burnout that could be a common pitfall is lack of consistency. You've got to be accountable to a schedule that we make, and you got to be accountable to others. So maybe you show your schedule to your coordinator. Say, okay, this is what we're going to do this week, and okay, Sunday comes around the next week, and your coordinator will say, well, did you accomplish everything on your list, or can I have a copy of it? Did you sign off on it? Having accountability is really good. Next point, laziness or pride. Let's say your quizzer is doing really well in quizzing, and they say, well, I don't need to quote every day because I did such and such at the tournament, I scored the highest, I don't need to quote every day. That, is a big issue there, and probably need to get others involved if you can't tackle that problem yourself. Team building exercises are really good. As a parent, you can do team building exercises if you have more than one sibling. As coaches as well, we do team building exercises during our practices. It's not all about quizzing, but everything we do focuses on us as a team and not an I. Next thing would be parents being disconnected. Parents is the key, I think, to a successful quizzer. Parents have to be involved at any level, really beginners and juniors, but they really need to be involved in seniors. So even if you're not a coach, come to practice. If your coordinator allows it, sometimes they want some time by themselves with their quizzers, and that's okay. But when it's an open quiz practice, you can come in and you can, watch it. Definitely do that. Go to the tournaments. Kids love to see their parents' expressions when they want to see, when they do really well at a tournament. Sometimes they don't want to see their parents' expressions if they haven't done well, but definitely go to the tournaments. Be involved in the fundraisers. I know as coaches as well, we have to have our parents help with fundraisers. If not, it puts a big load on the coaches to have to try to raise the money. So definite parent involvement is great with that. Help a quizzer quote. If you have a senior quizzer and a junior quizzer in your home, then they can quote to each other. That's okay. We've done that with our 4 children before. It's hard to have 2 kids in the same division quote to each other, though, because I know for us, for personal experience, they nitpick at each other. Well, you said this and you didn't say that. So, but definitely the parents need to be at least hearing their, hearing their quizzer quote every day. And I think that's about it.
Okay, so item I want to mention on routines of the average day, going back to UPC quiz, we utilize that website very heavily. The games material on there, and then there's also a thing called My Quiz Chart on there, which is relatively new. I don't think last year it was functional for most of the year, but it is functional starting this year. Basically, that can set goals for your quizzers. So I typed in some of that this morning for Seth just to see how it works. But basically, if you know you want to be at a certain point by the first tournament, from now till then, it'll tell how many verses they need to do a day. And then there's an accountability factor. You update it each week, and that information can go to their coach. It can also go to their parent. So it's a way for all of you to have a bird's eye view of how that quizzer is progressing. So again, like Brother Austin said, you don't get to where, okay, this was the requirement, but they didn't know the requirement at the start. So this gives them that several months look out there. So anyone can register for that. If kids are already registered using games, then they can use the same logins for that. So the question is, how do we fit quizzing into our busy lives? We tried to sum that up for you. One thing I don't want to give the impression of is to be a successful quiz parent, you don't have to do quizzing 24/7. In fact, one of the things we were stressing was it doesn't take a lot of time if you're consistent about it, if you find the right memorization style for your child, the way that they memorize the best, and you just stay with it. Now, if you get behind, it takes more time. If you start late, it takes more time. But if you start early enough in the quiz season, you can do it without absorbing all the time, because we know everyone's schedules are limited. Ultimately, we're all given the same time each day, and each of us, have to become better stewards of each moment of those days. And that's a daily challenge for everybody of how we're going to prioritize our time. But as far as someone that says, well, I don't have time for quizzing, you'd be surprised what you're spending your time on. Do a time management survey, kind of list what you do each day, do it for about a week, and you'll find areas where you have time to do things like that. Prioritizing activities and time, like my wife said, we make use of our time in the car. We drive about 45 minutes to church each way. It's an ideal time to be talking about scriptures and doing their quoting, getting ready for what's coming up for next tournament, next week, all those kind of things. Use apps that are out there, like Brother Jay said, there's so much resources nowadays that weren't even 5-10 years ago. And have them quote and learn in the car. The testimony I want to leave as a quiz parent is for any parents out there thinking about starting or in the midst of it, or maybe thinking about not doing it this year with your family for whatever reason. It works. It produces results. I know the results it produced in my life as a 15-year-old that was a pew sitter. I used to sit with my mom and dad. I was 15 years old. I wasn't part of a youth group. I wasn't plugged into church at all. And I had an aunt that cared about me and prayed for me and just kept pushing me year after year to get involved in Bible quizzing. And when I finally did, it really transformed my life as a young person. And I attribute it for the reason I'm in church today. I really do, even as an adult. In a lot of ways, that foundation is what I can fall back on when adversities come. And I know for my children, as we got involved in this 15 years ago as quiz parents, I had the question of, hey, is it going to work for my kids too? It worked for me, and that passion started coming back, from when I was a young person. And I saw the statistics of how it works, and just really plugged into it. And my wife and I would have conversations as our two older girls were growing up. We'd be like, where's the result? Where's the result? It's going to come. Just keep being patient and keep being consistent. And eventually it did. And you can see it in their lives today, and you look at it and go, again, it's that foundation. It's built on something that's firm, built on something that's secure. All four of my kids have the Holy Ghost. All four have been baptized in Jesus' name. It works. It produces results. So get involved, dig in there. There's going to be great days. There's going to be some days that aren't as great, but it's worth every moment of it.
Amen. Thank you, brother and sister Glover. That was phenomenal. Once again, we're going to be posting these resources, these documents that we're referring to on the seniorquizzing.com website. Also, you can email me at JAY2, and then LYTLE@gmail.com. He briefly mentioned there's some statistics, and you might have heard various statistics before. General Youth Division actually sponsored a study, it was a little over a year ago, to find out, does Bible quizzing actually increase the likelihood that a young person remains in church? And you can download the resource on the SeniorBibleQuizzing.com website, resource tab. Our study, it was from a 1997 roster of those at NUQT. These are individuals who are now in their early 30s who are starting families. And we found that being involved in Bible quizzing might increase the likelihood that a young person remains in church by up to 70%. And of those Bible quizzers who remain in church, over 80% are involved in leadership positions. So this ministry does work. You can find out the details, how that study was performed on the website. We're going to move now to an exciting topic, how to coach in a tournament. This is sometimes intimidating. You're a new coach, you need to know what to do once you're there at the tournament. So we're going to show you various different slides and scenarios. In my field as an optometrist, we call it a case study. But I'm going to quiz you. I'm going to ask you, what would you do in this situation? All right. We're going to go through various different scenarios here. And so I hope you're able to see the PowerPoint slide. We're going to move it a little bit here. Is it coming through? You can see it a little bit. All right, but I'm going to be reading what's there on the PowerPoint slides. But first, how to coach in a tournament. So the next slide, we're going to dive into many different topics here. We're going to talk about timeouts, how do you use them, and tests, point of orders, what are your responsibilities. Okay. Once again, all of these topics are found in the rule manual. Buy a rule manual and read it. Okay, it has all these ideas and topics, but we're going to try to condense them down and summarize them for you. So let's go to the next slide. So the very first thing, as a coach, you're going to need to know how to use a timeout. Okay, so we have a principle. All three of these ideas: timeouts, contests, and point of order. It's called stand, state, and wait. So you're going to be sitting for 99% of a quiz, but when you want to call a timeout, you stand up, you state timeout, or you can add please. That's okay too. You can say timeout, please, and then you wait for the quiz master to recognize you. Now you have to call a timeout in between two questions. And so they finish a question. Let's say question 1 is finished. The quiz master says correct or incorrect, and then there's a little moment of time, and then they start question number 2. And you have to stand and say timeout before they move on to the next question. If they start saying the next question, then it's actually a foul on your part for standing when you shouldn't have. And so you have to know when you're going to call the timeout and call quickly. So you stand up, you say timeout, and then the quiz master recognizes you. They say timeout, red coach, 60 seconds. Then you have 60 seconds to instruct your Bible quizzers. But what do you talk about? What do you do during a timeout? What's it for? Let's go to the next slide. When you call a timeout, I want you to think S's, okay? So right here, I have 6 different S's, reasons why you might call a timeout. Number 1, substitution. You want to trade quizzers. If you have more than 3, you might have some quizzers sitting back with you. Only 3 quizzers can sit up at the board at any moment. You can have up to 5 on your team. So you might have 1 or 2 quizzers who aren't in the quiz at that moment. So you can substitute a quizzer in and out so that all of them can get involved. Number 2 reason why you call a timeout is sadness. Maybe your quizzer's crying. They're not going to be very effective as a quizzer if they're crying. And so sometimes it happens. This is children and youth ministry. Emotions get to us all. And so this is a good time to call a 60-second timeout so they can gather their emotions. Number 3, strategy, particularly 2 different strategies. You might want to spark your quizzers, or you might want to silence your quizzers. These are 2 really important points. If you're behind in a quiz, if you're losing, maybe you're losing big time, you need to light a fire, spark your quizzers. So you call a timeout and you say, hey guys, what's going on? And let's move a little bit faster. Let's try to get on this next one. We need the next 3 out of 4 questions, okay? So you might want to spark them, or maybe the quiz is locked and you don't want to buzz in anymore. You can silence your quizzers by calling a timeout and saying, hey guys, let's not buzz in on the next few questions. Quiz is over. Let's give the other team a chance to buzz in. But the reason you might call a timeout is a score check. Maybe you're not sure what the score is. Maybe you lost track partway through. Maybe you want to make sure that you have everything correct. So you call a timeout to make sure you know what the score is at that moment. So substitutions, sadness, strategy, in particular sparking or silencing your quizzers, and then score checks. These are the 6 S's of timeouts. Let's go to the next slide. So this is an example score sheet. You can either keep track on a paper form, or on your tablet or laptop, you can download the resources at upcquiz.com. It's called the BQ Tournament software, and you can keep track of the score using the software. But somehow you're going to have to keep track of how many points do you have, how many points does the other team have, who's about to quiz out. We have a term in Bible quizzing where you get 8 questions correct, then you're out of the quiz. All right? They do that so that one quizzer can answer all the questions. So quizzing out is getting incorrect. Erroring out is getting 5 wrong. You can't get more than 5 wrong. You're out of the quiz if you do. Or fouling out is when you get 3 fouls. I haven't seen that too often. That's senior quizzing. In junior quizzing, it's a little different. It's 6 correct to quiz out, 5 incorrect to foul out, and then 3 fouls. 5 errors, 5 incorrect in order to error, and then 3 fouls to foul out. So you can get up to 8 right if you're in seniors. You can get up to 6 right as an individual if you are in juniors. But you've got to know who has how many points. You've got to keep good score. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to give you some different scenarios, okay? If you can't see the slides, I'm going to describe it to you. And I'm going to give you 4 different scenarios, and I want to know what would you do in this situation, okay? So you're creating a quiz, and right now we're starting question 18. There's 20 questions. 18, 19, and 20 are all 30-point questions. We're starting 18. So how many points are left in the quiz? 90 points are left. All 3 theories. We're entering the 30-point question, so there's 90 points left. And right now the score is 110 for the red, 15 for the yellow. 110 points for the red, 15 for the yellow. What would you do? What would you do? You're the red coach. All right? We've got
Can anybody quiz out for the yellow? or anybody,
Yellow can't quiz out.
Yeah,
Yep.
so we would limit it to more questions.
Yes, so what they said from the audience was, we would tell our quizzers not to buzz in any more questions. Right now, red is winning by 95, right? There's only 9 points left. There aren't enough points left for the yellow team to win. And so let's go to the next slide. What I would do is recognize that quiz is locked. You stand up, call a timeout, and you let your quizzers know the quiz is locked. We've already won the quiz if we don't buzz in anymore. The danger there is if your quizzers keep interrupting and they get a question wrong, then you're not winning by 90 anymore, 95 anymore. You could unlock a quiz and then you could go on to lose that quiz when your team had it won. Part of your job as a coach is to help make your quizzers know where you are. And the quizzers don't know. They're just looking at the quiz master and they don't know what the score is. They don't know whether the quiz is won or lost. You have to do your job as a coach to make sure your quizzers have the help that they need. So as a coach, the proper thing to do is to stand up and to let your quizzers know not to buzz in anymore, or at least not interrupt anymore. Because if you interrupt and you get it wrong, that quiz is unlocked. You lose that quiz. And so you have to do your job as a coach, and that's a silencing timeout right there. The quiz has been won, call a timeout. Let's go to the next scenario. In this scenario, it's question number 9. So we've just finished 10-pointers. The first 8 questions are 10-point questions. We're going to question 9. And so we've done 8 10-point questions. Right now it's red -10, yellow 70. And you're the red coach. Your team, first of all, you start with 10 points, okay? You start with 10 points because you showed up on time. And you get -5 for every question you get wrong. And so the red team obviously just missed 4 questions. And the yellow team got 6 questions. So your team just missed half of the first 8 questions. And the yellow team is winning by a lot. What would you do if you're the red coach? You need to spark some Bible quizzers. Very good. Let's go. So I would call them out and I would say, hey guys, what's going on? Or let's calm down. Maybe they're buzzing in too fast. Maybe that's why they got 4 wrong. Maybe you need to say, hey, slow down a little bit when you're buzzing in. But you need to spark your quizzers. Your role as a coach is to coach them. And so they need some coaching. Let's go to the next scenario. Scenario number 3. Okay. Let's lay the groundwork. We're going into question 19. So there's 2 questions left, 19 and 20. So how many points are available? 60 points are available. And the score is 100 for the red, 80 for the yellow. By the way, yellow one has 6 correct. Is that important? A little bit of a trick information. Not really. It's not really that important because if they were to get 2 more and quiz out, the quiz is over anyways. And so it's kind of outlier information. That was a distractor. But it's 100 to 80. I want to know if you were the red coach, what do you say? If you were the yellow coach, what do you say? Okay, so first, let's do red coach. If you're the red coach, what are you going to do on your timeout? What are you telling your quizzers? Well, it's 100 to 80. There's 60 points left.
I think you tell your quizzers to be selective about the next 2 questions. 1 out of 2 is to pick what you like, their style, what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so what the coach is saying in the audience here is you need to tell the red coach, you need to tell your quizzers, we need 1 of the next 2, right? You need 1 of the next 2 in order to win. Let's go to the next slide. So red coach calls a timeout. You tell your quizzers, we need 1. Now here's a little wrinkle that you can also tell your quizzers. Tell them if the yellow team buzzes in, don't answer any rereads. You got that? If the yellow team buzzes in and interrupts the question and gets it wrong, don't answer the reread because then it's 100 to 65. You're winning by 35. If you leave it alone, then you've won. This is important. And if your quizzers are mature, now juniors are probably not going to go into this much detail, but a teenager can understand this. Senior quizzers can understand this idea that if they get 1 wrong, then we're winning by 35. This actually happened to me at Nationals. I was quizzing against a phenomenal team at Nationals, and this exact scenario happened. And they buzzed in, got it wrong. We didn't answer the reread, and we ended up winning because we understood the score at that moment. So coach, you have to recognize we need one of the next two, or if the yellow team interrupts and gets it wrong, then it's also one, and so tell your quiz not to buzz in. Let's go to the next one. If you're the yellow coach, before question 19, you're just calling it and saying, hey, we need both. I mean, there's no other way around it. It's not really too complicated. So let's go to the next one. And so what happens if the yellow quizzer gets 19 right? If yellow 1 gets it correct, this is the same scenario, only the yellow team got 19. Now it's 100 for the red, 110 for the yellow. The red coach calls a timeout and tells his team, hey guys, we still need one of those 230s, so hey, we need this question. But don't answer a reread again. Because if the yellow team answers 20, interrupts it, gets it wrong, then what's the score? It's 100 to 95. And so in this scenario number 3 that I'm giving you, there is no scenario where red should be answering a reread. Okay? Your quizzers have to understand that. And you as a coach have to do a little bit of math in your mind and recognize that we've got to factor in, if the quizzer gets it wrong, half the points are subtracted away. And this quiz is locked. At any point in time, yellow gets an interrupted question wrong. Okay? Now, let's go to question number 4. Oh, and yellow, if the yellow coach on question number 20, you still have to tell your quizzer we need one. All right? If it's 100 for the red, 110 for the yellow, if you're the yellow coach, you still got to tell them to go for it. Because what if red gets it right? Then it's 130 to 110. So you've got the last question. Let's go to scenario number 4. Okay, this is scenario number 4. It's 100 for red, 135 for the yellow. There's only one question left. How many points are left? 30 points. So if you're the red coach, what do?
Give the other two.
Well, here's a little trick. I had a little trick in the question. Let's go to the next one. What if I told you that red 1 had 7 correct? Yes. If red is losing by 35, but red 1 has 7 correct, if they get one more question right, they get bonus 10 points for quizzing out. And so that last question might actually be worth 40 points if red 1's the one that gets it correct. Okay? And so if you're the yellow coach, you have to understand not only what the score is, but how many questions does red 1 have correct. You have to know if the quiz is about to quiz out or not, because there's 10 bonus points ready to be grabbed. And so the red coach calls a timeout, and what do you say if you're the red coach? If you're the red coach, you're calling a timeout. You're letting your kids know that only red 1 is allowed to answer. Unless it's a reread, that's good. So if yellow were to get it wrong, then you're only losing by 20, then anybody can answer. But on the initial reading of the question, only red 1 is allowed to answer. That might sound a little silly, and I'm trying to get all the kids involved. Yeah, but you want to win the quiz too. And part of your responsibility as a coach is to help your quizzers be the most successful they can be. And so red 1 is the only one on the red team that should be buzzing in on the initial reading of this question, because they're the only one that can quiz out and get those 10 bonus points. So in this scenario, the red coach is telling your team, red 1's allowed to answer, nobody else. And the yellow coach is saying, hey guys, we got to go for it on this question. Just because we're winning by 35 doesn't mean this quiz is won. And so the yellow coach is saying, we need 1, or here's another scenario. Yellow, you should be telling your quizzers, buzz in as soon as the question is done being read. Because the quiz master reads the question, right? And then there's a 5-second pause. You don't want red 1 to buzz in during that 5-second pause. I mean, what if red 1 is sitting there thinking, during that 5-second pause after the question is read, what if they're thinking, oh, I know that one. Boom, red 1 answers and gets it right. Red wins. And so as the yellow coach, you're going to tell your kids, buzz in as soon as the question's done being read, because then they can't get any rereads. It doesn't even matter if you get it wrong at that point. I mean, if you're the yellow team, and let's say all you have is your yellow 3 quizzer, and they don't know any of this, they don't know what sig they buzz in as soon as the question's done being read, they just help their team win. They're still going to be excited about that. I mean, they could sing, Old MacDonald Had a Farm into the microphone. It doesn't really matter because the most they're going to lose is minus 15 points, and they still won by 20. So you also have to factor in, am I buzzing in on an interruption with a potential reread? Or if the question's being read, the most you're going to lose is 15 points. So yellow, these are little wrinkles of coaching that you can understand and you can help your quizzers realize. You've got to do them in your mind and help your quizzers know the scenario. So let's go to the next one. So those were timeouts. That's a big role as a coach. You've got to know the score. You've got to help your quizzers understand where they are in the quiz. Next is a contest. Now, only a quizzer is allowed to contest. All right, I've seen enough coaches try to contest. It's something a quizzer is only allowed to initiate. Once again, a quizzer stands, stays, and waits. So let's go to the next slide. So there's a lot of reasons why you might want to contest. Maybe it's a faulty question. Maybe the question is mislabeled. Maybe they said question number 3 is a 3-part question worth 10 points question. It turns out it was a 4-part question. Well, question writers are human. Sometimes there's typos on the page, and so maybe it's a bad question. Quizzer stands up, contest, we bring that down, contest granted. So a contest can go one of 3 ways. Either it's granted, that means I agree with you. It's denied, which means no, the contest is wrong. Or it can be withdrawn by the person who they contest. Okay? Second reason you might contest is maybe you think your opponent should have been actually called wrong. So they were called right and you think they were wrong. Maybe you were called wrong and you think you were right. Maybe you want to call it contest because you want to break up the momentum. Maybe that's the only way a quizzer can break up the momentum. So let's say you're the captain of a team and you know that they just got the last 9 questions right, and I just need a pause. I need to gather my thoughts. As a quizzer, you can call a contest to break momentum if you have your coach's permission to do that. Maybe your coach doesn't want you calling momentum contests. You gotta instruct them appropriately. And then strategy. Maybe as a quizzer, I did this in my last year as a quizzer. There were times as a quizzer, as 18-year-old and senior quizzing, that I was keeping track of the score in my mind. And sometimes I wanted to double check what the score was in my mind, and so I would call a contest so that I could speak with my coach so I could figure out what the score was at that moment. And so maybe you say that's not what a contest is for, but you're really just using the tools that you have available to help your success, okay? So you could withdraw it, and it's a way for you to communicate with your coach. Captains can also call timeouts, by the way, but that's between your coach, okay? That's between the coach and the captain. Captains are allowed to stand up and call timeout, but it's very rarely ever done. Let's go to the next one. So actually, let's go back one slide, and we're gonna bring some volunteers. We're gonna turn the lights on a bit, okay? And we're gonna do some example contests. So I need three members of the team. Seth and Eden, can you help me here? And would you like to help me? No? Okay. Brother Dates, we read 3? Okay, Brother Dates. So you two can be here, and Austin, can you be my coach? Okay. We're going to do a little example contesting. By the way, there's a video on how to contest on seniorBibleQuizzing.com. You can go to the resource tab, scroll down about halfway on the left side. There's a video that says how to contest. Okay, so here we have our red team. Red team, wait for the camera. There they are. So this is a beginner Bible quizzing team, and so we have a beginner Bible quizzing team here, and they're a really sharp beginner Bible quizzing because they realized that yellow team was called correct, but you think they're actually wrong. They completely coded it incorrectly. Okay, so you want to contest. So what do? We're going to do some example scenarios. So how about Eden? You're the one that contests. So show me what you're going to do if you contest. Contest. So she stood up, she stated contest, and then she waited. And at that time, I say contest, read to 60 seconds. Now, you saw Seth just stood up because he understands that as a captain has to stand up whenever a contest is called. This is one of the few actual roles of a captain. Coach, you have to understand that your captain has to know what to do if a contest occurs. And so even though Seth wasn't the one who called the contest, that was read 2, Seth are going to talk to each other. There they are, they're talking. And then the captain decides whether he goes to talk with the coach or whether Eden goes to talk with the coach. And so, Seth, who do you want to talk with the coach? Probably Eden, because she's the one who called the contest to begin with. And so Eden begins to turn toward her coach, and you will watch the coach. He's actually going to stand up, because a coach has to stand in order to speak to the quizzer. And you also notice that he doesn't have anything in his hands. As a coach, you cannot have a list of verse in your hands while you're talking with the quizzer during a contest. That's a foul. That's -5 points. And so our coach is standing, and he and Eden are talking. They're just sitting there. And then the coach decides whether he or Eden is going to come down and talk with the officials, or whether they want to withdraw it. And so let's see what they decide. So he's talking, and he says Eden's going to come down, and Eden's walking down here, and she's talking with the officials, and she lets the officials know what the contest is, very politely, of course, and then she walks back to her chair, and then the officials begin to talk about what it was. And that's the time where the officials will say, contest granted or contest denied. All right? So that was one scenario. Great job, everybody. So let's do another scenario. In this scenario, we're going to have all three of you stand up. All three of you recognize that the team should have been called wrong. Now, this is one scenario where you've got to know what to do. If at any point in time, number 2 and number 3 are standing up, number 3 has to sit down automatically. Okay, sorry, number 3. I'm sure you had very valuable input, but 2 and 3 cannot be standing at the same time, ever. 2 always trumps 3, okay? And so Eden, you're going to talk with Seth just like you did before. Seth's going to decide who goes talk with the coach, so this time he's going to go and Eden sits down. The coach stands up with nothing in his hands. They talk, and the coach decides who's going to go down and talk to the officials. And then Seth comes down, he talks with us, and, oh, okay, oh, very good, contest granted, okay? So that was the scenario where all three of them were standing up at the same time. Now, what about if 2 and 3 stand up at the same time? Seth doesn't. So Eden and Brother Nate, go ahead and stand up. Now, what do you think happens? 3 sits down automatically. All right. This is actually a provision in the rule manual. Once again, I said if 2 and 3 stand up at the same time, 3 always has to sit down right away. And then the captain stands, because the captain always has to stand during a contest. Same procedure. They talk. Seth decided he wanted Eden to go back and talk with the coach. The coach stands with nothing in his hands. He chats, and they bring the contest down. So good job, you can sit there. Now, the only time that 3 ever gets to talk with somebody is if 3 stands up by themselves, or if 1 and 3 stand up at the same time. If 2 ever stands up, sorry 3, you've got to sit down, okay? And so you see here that if the captain never stands up, somebody's getting a foul, right? The captain has to stand up every single time, regardless if they stood up initially or if it was one of their teammates that stood up. So that's a big job of the captain. Now, let's have one of you come over on this side, okay? Maybe you scoot down 1 chair. So now he's on the yellow team. He's out of the buzzer 3. Now you're the captain of the yellow team. How's it feel? Pretty good. He's excited. All right. So, what we're going to do, I'm reading a question as the quiz master, and it turns out it's a really bad question. I said it was a 2-parter. Turns out it was a 3-parter. Completely wrong. Everybody recognizes it. So, Brother Dates, he recognizes it right away. So he stands up and says contest, and then Seth recognizes it, and he stands up and says contest. In this scenario, the quiz master is only going to recognize yellow 1. Yellow 1's going to come down and contest, and then the red team will have an opportunity to contest after. Because yellow was obviously first. You stood up way before he did. So the first person to stand up gets recognized. You can both sit down. What about if they stand up at the same time? So I ask the question, I say correct, boom, same time. In this scenario, both of them get to bring their contest down before a decision is made. So the quizmaster is just going to pick one, and whoever he thinks was first. So yellow's going to come down, follow the proper procedure, talk with the quizmaster, and then red's going to follow the proper procedure, come down, talk with the quizmaster, and they're going to make both decisions at the same time. So if they stand up at exactly the same time, that's the only scenario where both people need to be heard by the quizmaster. All right? So you can all sit down. So you can see that it's important you understand the proper procedure because there's a lot of different parts and pieces to a given test. One final thing, when the coach is talking with the quizzer, they can't have anything in their hands. And if the quizzer sits down, the coach can't call them back again. Once the quizzer sits down, they're down for good. Okay? Also, the coach can't talk with their other coach and then talk with their quizzer again. Or the coach can't consult with their verses and then talk with the quizzer again. They have to talk with the quizzer with nothing in their hands one time, okay? And then they have to have a seat. All right? You get 2 contests withdrawn. That means, say, we thought we were going to test, but we changed our mind. You get 2 contests denied, and you get an unlimited contest granted. I know one young lady who had 3 contests granted in Brother Fulbear's session in the same quiz at National. So that's rare, but it can happen. So if you're going to get granted, you can get as many granted as you want to. We give a hand to our participants here. Great job. Wonderful. Thank you for your help. And we're going to go back to our presentation here. So back to our slides. We're going to go to our next slide here. It's a point of order. A point of order is something that only a coach can do. So there's some things that only quizzers can do. There's some things that only coaches can do. Only quizzers can contest. Only coaches can call a point of order. And a point of order is the same procedure. You're standing, you're stating point of order, and then you're waiting to be recognized by the quizmaster. And let's go to the next slide. So there's a few reasons why we call points of order. Number one is a procedural problem. So there's a proper procedure to how a quiz is supposed to happen. If a team interrupts a question, it's supposed to be reread if it's wrong, right? If a quizzer gets 8 correct, they're out of the quiz, right? If they get 5 wrong, they're out of the quiz. These are procedural things. And if those things don't happen, maybe the officials are busy and they didn't recognize it, officials are human, they make mistakes, then you could stand up, you could say, point of order, I think that last question was interrupted and it should be read. And then the officials will say, yep, you're right, we'll reread that. If the other team, if the quizzer got it right, you can stand up and say, point of order, I believe that was his 8th correct. And then they're out of the quiz. Because you wouldn't want that same getting their 9th correct and 10th correct question. And so you've got to help the officials if you realize the mistakes being made. The other reason you can use a point of order is for some clarification. In other words, if, let's say, a foul happens, and you don't know who got the foul or how that changed the score, you can call a point of order and say, point of order, can you just remind me how the score was changed at that moment? And the officials will gladly do that. Also, you can call a point of order if there's something wrong with the sound system, technical malfunctions, if you can't hear the quizmaster properly, maybe you didn't realize if the quizmaster said if it was denied or granted the contest, okay? And so you can clarify something with a point of order. Now let's talk about the things you can't use a point of order for, all right? You can't use a point of order to start an argument. You can't use a point of order to file a contest. Point of order, yeah, so I think you got that one really wrong. You can't use a point of order to argue whether something was right or wrong. And you can't use a point of order to point out a foul. You can't say point of order, yeah, I think they were talking with somebody in the audience right there. Or you can't say point of order, yeah, he didn't really stand up all the way on the contest, that should be a foul. It's not the job of the coach to point out a foul. That's the job of the officials. That's the job of the quizmaster and the judges and the foul judge. And so if it doesn't get called, if the foul isn't recognized, then the officials, as the officials, we apologize, but we just have to live with it and move on. Okay, so you can't use a point of order for some things. That's important to recognize. Even if you think the quizmaster was so wrong, you're going to have to wait until after the quiz to have that discussion with them. Okay? So point of order is used for procedural things and clarification purposes, not for contesting or a ruling or to point out a foul. Let's go to the next one. So what are your other responsibilities as a coach? We're coming to a close here. You have a lot of roles as a coach, and I think your primary role is to act as a mentor. Some of my Bible quizzing coaches growing up taught me how to be a man. They taught me how to be a Christian. They taught me how to deal with adversity. They taught me how to have good habits. And so as a coach, you are investing a lifetime investment in a young person that will go with them for the rest of their life. Learn how to work hard on a regular basis, that's a life thing. That's not just a Bible quizzing thing. And so you're teaching them techniques and strategies that are important things. And so you're going to have to be there to encourage them, teach them, recognize an opportunity for what it truly is. If they lose a quiz, I mean, what's really that in the context of their life? It's just a game. It's just a few points, made up points. It's just a trophy made out of plastic or wood. That's not what we're doing this for. If a $7 trophy is all it takes for a 7-year-old to learn 107 verses they're going to remember for the next 70 years of their life, I'm glad they use that $7 trophy. But we recognize that it's a means to an end. It's just a trophy. So our role is to raise up Christians. It's to raise up young people who understand moral principles and who know how to deal with problems and adversities. And so recognize that Bible quizzing is just a means to an end. Use an opportunity as a tournament to develop a human being, not just a Bible quizzer. You're also responsible for logistical things like letting parents know who can be in the room and to show up for the tournament. How much money for the kids to bring for lunch. So you have to let them know the details. And also, you're there to help the officials. The officials oftentimes are volunteering their time, and we don't have enough staff to cover all of the necessary needs. And so we might need coaches to jump in and be judges or to keep score or to do different, maybe setting up and taking down. These are things that really make a difference for officials. And so please help out your officials in your local district. Let's go to the next one. So we have a little bit of time here for questions and answers. Once again, if you're watching at home, you can email me at jay2ly@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us at the Senior Bible Quizzing website. Anyone in our audience have any questions you might have for today? Yes.
I have just one. I noticed one time at a quiz last year, a parent was like knocking something to a quizzer. Can you do that as a point of order, or how would you have to bring that to the officials?
That's a good point. So the question was, if you see someone in the audience communicating with a quizzer, how do you as a coach point that out? And so you can't actually point that out as a point of orders. That would be a foul. If you're communicating with an audience member, that's a foul. What I would do in that scenario is maybe during a timeout, walk down to the quizmaster and just point it out, and that way the judge officials can look for it. So you can't give them a foul for what already happened in the past. You can make the officials aware of what's going on so that they can catch it in the future. Any other questions? Well, our next slide is our Rooted logo, and we are so thrilled for 2017 Bible Quizzing. There's actually something very special happening this year. It's actually the 50th anniversary for the National Bible Quizzing Tournament. And so the 50th anniversary of NWQT, we're going to have a phenomenal time in Indianapolis, Indiana, celebrating 50 years of nationals. And so there's going to be artifacts from previous generations of Bible quizzing, the old buzzer systems, the old manuals. We're going to have all kinds of pioneers of Bible quizzing to celebrate this great achievement. And so we're looking forward to 2017 with the Book of Acts. As always, please reach out to us if we can help you at any time. And thank you for attending the 2017 Ohio Bible Quizzing Workshop.